The story of Judas Iscariot remains one of the most perplexing and debated narratives in Christian history. His actions and their implications have been the subject of countless discussions, sermons, and scholarly works over the centuries. Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, betrayed his teacher for 30 pieces of silver. This act of betrayal is one of the most infamous in religious history, marking Judas as a symbol of treachery. This act ultimately led to Jesus' arrest, trial, and crucifixion. The consequences of Judas's actions were monumental, setting in motion the events that would become central to Christian belief. Theological discussions about Judas often center around a fundamental question, a question that has profound implications for our understanding of morality and divine justice. Did Judas betray Jesus out of his own volition, exercising free will, or was his betrayal part of a larger, preordained, divine plan? This question strikes at the heart of theological debates about predestination and human agency. This question has intrigued theologians and scholars for centuries, leading to a rich tapestry of interpretations. Each interpretation offers a different perspective on the nature of Judas's actions and their significance. At the heart of this debate lies a fundamental tension within Christian theology, a tension that has shaped much of Christian thought and doctrine. The relationship between human free will and God's sovereignty. This relationship is complex and often paradoxical, raising questions about the nature of divine omniscience and human responsibility. If God is truly omnipotent and omniscient, does humanity possess genuine freedom of choice? Or are our actions, even the most treacherous, part of a larger divine script? Or are our actions, even the most treacherous, part of a larger divine script? This question challenges our understanding of fate and destiny, and whether we are truly the authors of our own lives. This dilemma is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a profound exploration of the human condition. It grapples with the core of human understanding of responsibility, guilt, and ultimately the nature of God. The story of Judas forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions head-on. The story of Judas forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions head-on. It compels us to examine our understanding of betrayal, loyalty, and the complexities of human motivation. It compels us to examine our understanding of betrayal, loyalty, and the complexities of human motivation. Was Judas a willing participant in a cosmic drama, fulfilling a predetermined role? Was Judas a willing participant in a cosmic drama, fulfilling a predetermined role? Or was he a man driven by greed, ambition, or perhaps even a misguided sense of loyalty, ultimately responsible for his tragic choice? Or was he a man driven by greed, ambition, or perhaps even a misguided sense of loyalty, ultimately responsible for his tragic choice? The answers to these questions are far from simple. The answers to these questions are far from simple. They reside in the shadowy realm where human action intersects with divine purpose. They reside in the shadowy realm where human action intersects with divine purpose. A realm that continues to challenge and captivate those seeking to understand the enigmatic figure of Judas Iscariot. A realm that continues to challenge and captivate those seeking to understand the enigmatic figure of Judas Iscariot. His story is a mirror reflecting the deepest questions of faith, morality, and the human soul. The Gospels, particularly the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, provide the primary accounts of Judas's betrayal. These accounts, though brief, are laden with emotional weight and theological significance.
What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?
Matthew 26:14-16 recounts the moment Judas approaches the chief priests, offering to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Mark's account, in Mark the 14th of October 11, echoes this event, highlighting the calculated nature of Judas's actions. These passages depict Judas actively seeking out those who wish to silence Jesus. He's not portrayed as a reluctant participant coerced into betrayal. Instead, he initiates the exchange, bargaining with the religious leaders and setting in motion the events that would lead to Jesus' death. This active role suggests a degree of agency on Judas's part, a willingness to betray his teacher for personal gain. John's Gospel provides a more nuanced perspective. During the Last Supper, Jesus, aware of Judas's impending betrayal, identifies him as the one who will hand him over to the authorities.
Having received the piece of bread, he then went out immediately, and it was night.
This imagery of night underscores the moral darkness surrounding Judas's actions. While the Gospels offer glimpses into Judas's motivations, they refrain from providing a definitive psychological profile. Was it greed, disillusionment, or perhaps a misguided attempt to force Jesus' hand that ultimately drove him? The biblical accounts leave these questions open to interpretation, contributing to the enduring mystery surrounding Judas's infamous betrayal. The story of Judas Iscariot throws into sharp relief one of the most enduring theological debates, the relationship between human free will and God's sovereignty. This debate is not just a matter of academic interest, but touches the very core of our understanding of morality, responsibility, and the nature of the divine. If God, as traditionally understood, is all-knowing and all-powerful, how can humans genuinely exercise free will? This question has puzzled theologians, philosophers, and believers for centuries, leading to various interpretations and schools of thought. Does God predestine our actions, even those deemed evil? Or do we possess the autonomy to choose our own paths, even if those paths lead to betrayal and sin? The story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is often cited as an early example of this dilemma.
This debate has raged for centuries within Christian thought. Theologians have written volumes, held councils, and engaged in intense debates to explore the nuances of this issue. Some theologians, emphasizing God's absolute sovereignty, argue that Judas's betrayal, while morally reprehensible, was ultimately part of God's plan for human salvation. They see Judas as a tragic figure whose actions, though evil, were necessary for the fulfillment of divine prophecy. They point to passages like Acts 4:27-28, which states that Jesus was delivered up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. This suggests that every event, including Judas's betrayal, was foreseen and integrated into God's grand design.
From this perspective, Judas, though morally culpable, becomes an instrument in a larger divine drama. His betrayal a necessary act in the unfolding of God's redemptive plan. This view, however, does not absolve Judas of his moral responsibility. However, this interpretation raises troubling questions about the nature of God and human responsibility. If God preordains even evil acts, how can humans be held accountable for their choices? This leads to a profound moral and ethical dilemma. If God preordains even evil acts, how can humans be held accountable for their choices? Does such a view undermine the concepts of justice and morality? These questions challenge our understanding of divine justice and human freedom. Does such a view undermine the concepts of justice and morality? The tension between divine sovereignty and human free will remains a central issue in theological discussions.
Other theologians, emphasizing human free will, argue that Judas, like all humans, possessed the capacity to choose between right and wrong. They believe that Judas's actions were not predestined, but were the result of his own decisions and motivations. They suggest that Judas, driven by greed, ambition, or disillusionment, made a conscious choice to betray Jesus, a choice that had devastating consequences, but was ultimately his own. This perspective highlights the importance of personal responsibility and moral agency. This perspective, while upholding human agency, struggles to reconcile Judas's betrayal with God's omniscience. If God knew Judas would betray Jesus, why did he choose him as a disciple? This question adds another layer of complexity to the debate. If God knew Judas would betray Jesus, why did he choose him as a disciple? This question adds another layer of complexity to the debate, challenging our understanding of divine foreknowledge and human freedom.
Theological attempts to reconcile these seemingly contradictory concepts often focus on the idea of God's permissive will. This concept suggests that God allows certain events to happen even if they are not in line with his perfect will to bring about a greater good. This view suggests that while God did not desire or condone Judas's betrayal, he allowed it to occur, knowing that it would ultimately contribute to a greater good. This perspective tries to balance the sovereignty of God with human free will. The debate between free will and predestination remains a complex and unresolved tension within Christian theology. Scholars continue to explore and debate these issues, seeking to understand the mysteries of divine providence and human freedom. The story of Judas, far from offering easy answers, forces us to confront the limits of human understanding when grappling with the mysteries of God's nature and the complexities of human choice. It challenges us to reflect on our own beliefs and the nature of our relationship with the divine. The theological interpretations of Judas's betrayal often draw upon Old Testament prophecies, particularly Isaiah's depiction of the suffering servant. This connection has been a subject of deep contemplation and debate among scholars and theologians for centuries. Isaiah 53, a passage rich in messianic imagery, describes a figure who would bear the sins of many, stricken for the transgression of my people. This passage has been pivotal in shaping the understanding of the messianic role and the suffering that accompanies it. This servant is despised and rejected by men, betrayed into the hands of his enemies. The imagery here is powerful, evoking a sense of profound injustice and sorrow.
Some theologians see a clear parallel between Isaiah's suffering servant and the betrayal of Jesus. They delve into the texts, drawing connections that span centuries and cultures. They argue that Judas's actions, however treacherous, were a fulfillment of this ancient prophecy, a necessary step in the divinely ordained path leading to Jesus's atoning sacrifice. This perspective offers a lens through which to view Judas not merely as a villain, but as a complex figure within a grander narrative. From this perspective, Judas, though a figure worthy of condemnation, becomes an unwitting instrument in God's plan, his betrayal woven into the fabric of salvation history. This interpretation adds a layer of tragic inevitability to his actions.
This interpretation, while offering a theological framework for understanding Judas's actions, raises questions about the nature of prophecy and human agency. It challenges us to think deeply about the balance between divine foreknowledge and human freedom. Does prophecy negate free will, transforming individuals into mere puppets acting out a predetermined script? Or does it operate in a more nuanced manner, revealing divine intentions while preserving human autonomy? Or does prophecy operate on a different plane, revealing God's intentions without stripping humans of their capacity for choice? This question remains a profound mystery, inviting endless exploration and reflection.
The connection between Isaiah's suffering servant and Judas's betrayal highlights the complex interplay between divine foreknowledge and human responsibility. It suggests a divine orchestration that works through human actions, both good and evil. It suggests that God, in his infinite wisdom, can work through even the most wicked of acts to accomplish his purposes. This view offers a sense of hope and redemption, even in the darkest of narratives. However, this understanding does not absolve Judas of the moral weight of his actions. He remains a figure who chose betrayal, a choice that had profound and tragic consequences. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the gravity of our choices. He remains a figure who chose betrayal, a choice that had profound and tragic consequences. His actions, while part of a larger divine plan, still carry the weight of personal responsibility and moral failure.
The shadow of Isaiah's suffering servant looms large over the story of Judas, adding another layer of complexity to an already multifaceted narrative. This shadow serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of prophecy and history. It reminds us that the drama of salvation unfolds on a cosmic stage, where human choices intersect with divine purposes in ways that often defy human understanding. This cosmic perspective invites us to see our own lives as part of a larger divine story.